I thought losing my home to the storm was the worst thing that could happen, until my own son shut the door in my face. "You're fine, Mom," he said, while his wife filmed for their followers. That night, I slept in my car behind a pharmacy, watching their Instagram stories about family resilience. They called it content. I called it betrayal. But what they didn't know was that I still had proof, papers that could destroy their lies and rebuild my life from the ground up. And fate had one more surprise waiting, in the form of someone I thought I'd lost forever. "Mom, don't make this weird," Aaron said, nudging my suitcase back across the threshold with his shoe. "You're fine." Behind him, Tina smirked over her phone. "Our followers love a resilience arc," she whispered, adjusting the camera angle for better lighting. That was the moment my own son shut the door on me, while my roof lay twisted in a field and I'd been sleeping in a grocery store parking lot. A week earlier, the sky over Springfield had turned the color of a bad bruise. The derecho hit at 9:17 p.m., glass screaming, rafters snapping like brittle bones. By morning, my little bungalow was nothing but a splintered skeleton. Since Robert died last year, I had told myself there was still one thing I could rely on: a son who would never let me fall through the cracks. I drove to St. Louis with my hands trembling on the wheel, promising myself it was just for a few nights, 3, maybe 4, until the insurance called back. I brought a jar of peach jam I'd canned in June and the dog-eared photo of Aaron at 6 in his yellow rain boots. I rehearsed gratitude. I rehearsed not crying. At Aaron's door, I stood clutching the handle of my suitcase like it was a lifeline. The house smelled of citrus candles and new money. Everything gleamed, even the air. Tina opened the door halfway, her glossy hair pulled into one of those perfect, effortless knots I'd never mastered. Her eyes flicked down to my suitcase. "We're filming tonight," she said flatly, stepping aside but not enough for me to enter. "Can you maybe not unpack all over the place? The vibes need to stay light." Vibes. That word had become their religion. Everything in their world had to be curated: pain, joy, grief, all filtered into something profitable. Aaron appeared from the kitchen, wearing one of those minimalist hoodies that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Mom," he said with that patient, managerial tone he'd adopted since he started running his so-called content agency. "Let's talk inside for a sec." I followed him into the living room, where a soft ring light glowed beside the couch. The camera was already set up, waiting like a silent witness. "I posted that you're safe and staying with friends," he said. "It's better for brand perception. People panic when they see tragedy, they unfollow." "Staying where?" I asked. He looked past me to the glowing ring. "You'll figure it out, Mom. You always do." Behind him, Tina was whispering into her phone, "Crisis management content, family edition." She smiled faintly at me, as though I were part of the set dressing. That was when the truth landed, heavy and cold. I wasn't a guest, I was a liability. I nodded slowly, swallowing around the lump that rose in my throat. "Of course," I said. "I wouldn't want to disturb your vibes." He smiled with relief, as if I'd agreed to an unspoken contract. "You're the best," he said, kissing the air near my cheek before disappearing toward the hallway. 2 hours later, I was parked behind a pharmacy, my suitcase in the backseat and the engine off to save gas. I wrapped my cardigan tighter and watched the sky turn from blue to gray to nothing. The night guard's truck passed every 30 minutes, its headlights sweeping across my windshield like searchlights. I told myself it was just for tonight. Just until I figured things out. When dawn came, I scrolled through my phone, desperate for any kind of comfort, and there it was, Tina's story on Instagram. A perfectly filtered shot of her coffee beside a quote card that read "family emergency, sending love." "She's fine." The comments were a flood of hearts and prayer emojis. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. "She's fine," I whispered, laughing dryly. The sound startled me. It came out like metal scraping metal. That morning, I brushed my teeth with bottled water in a gas station restroom and pretended not to see the pity in the cashier's eyes when I bought a pack of crackers for breakfast. I told myself I wasn't homeless, just misplaced. But as the days stretched, humiliation became routine. Tina's voice echoed from a speakerphone one afternoon when I called Aaron to check if he'd heard from the insurance adjuster. "She's milking it," she told someone. Total drama queen with a ruined house. We all have problems. I hung up before he noticed I was still on the line. Later that night, a text from Aaron buzzed in. Aaron, working on something big to help you. Drafting a GoFundMe, rebuilding for mom. He sent a preview link. My heart sank when I saw the photo he'd chosen, the one from Robert's funeral, my face blotchy and lost. Aaron, funds will route through my LLC, it's simpler for logistics. Trust me. I stared at that word, trust, until the letters blurred. That evening, I pretended I'd eaten dinner when my stomach growled so loud it hurt. I nibbled on pretzels from a vending machine, washing them down with warm water I'd refilled from a sink. Every sound seemed to mock me, the hum of the refrigerator, the steady tick of the car clock. On the third night, my radiator hissed and blew a plume of steam like an exhausted sigh. I coasted into a parking lot behind a diner and laid my forehead against the steering wheel. The metal was cool against my skin, grounding me in a world that suddenly felt paper thin. A knock on the window made me jump. You okay there, ma'am? I looked up into a face that pulled me straight back to another lifetime, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and grease on his hands. Linda? He asked, squinting in the half-dark. Jack? My voice cracked. Jack Thompson? He grinned, lines deepening around his eyes. Well, I'll be. Haven't seen you since high school. He had been the boy who fixed the jukebox at the skating rink in my heart in the same week, decades ago. Car trouble? He asked. I nodded. Radiator. Or maybe everything. He chuckled softly. Let me take a look. Before I could protest, he had the hood up, flashlight between his teeth, working with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to make noise to prove his worth. 10 minutes later, the engine coughed back to life. There, he said, wiping his hands. Good as new, for now. I wanted to say thank you, but the words stuck somewhere between pride and shame. He must have seen it, because his voice softened. Come inside the diner, he said. You shouldn't sit out here freezing and pretending you're fine. I hesitated. I don't want to impose. He smiled. Linda Harper, I've got a booth and hot coffee with your name on it. That's not charity. That's neighborly. The warmth in his tone cracked something in me that had been cold for too long. I followed him inside. The diner smelled of bacon grease and coffee, familiar and forgiving. Jack ordered eggs and toast for both of us, no questions, no pity. Just quiet conversation, the kind that fills the empty spaces gently. When he asked where I was staying, I stared at the napkin dispenser until my eyes stung. He didn't press. Outside, dawn began to wash the parking lot in pale gold. For the first time in days, I didn't feel invisible. But before I could rest in that small peace, my phone buzzed again, an email from the insurance company. Subject: verification request, claim beneficiary. I opened it, frowning. Dear Mrs. Harper, we've received multiple communications from your son's business manager requesting that the claim funds be transferred to Harper Creative LLC for operational efficiency. Please confirm authorization. My breath caught. They were trying to take even this, my last bit of safety, my husband's legacy, my home. I read it again, slower this time, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't just misplaced anymore. I was being erased. And I decided right then, I wasn't going to let them. I forwarded the email to myself twice, as if duplicating it could make it less true. Then I took a picture of the screen, because habit has a way of confusing proof with comfort. Jack slid a mug toward me. Bad news? Insurance, I said. Not exactly. Worse, maybe. Creative accounting dressed up as concern. He didn't pry. He just tapped the table with 2 fingers, an old rhythm from the rink, like he was coaxing the jukebox back to life. Do you want me to stick around while you call them? I nodded, because I'd run out of places to pretend I didn't need anyone. Ms. Dwyer answered on the second ring, brisk and awake enough to make me check the clock. Mrs. Harper? I'm glad you called. I was about to reach out again. Her voice was professional, but there was a sliver of warmth in it, the kind nurses keep in their pocket for when the room goes cold. We've received multiple communications from your son's business manager requesting disbursement to, let me read this exactly, Harper Creative LLC for operational efficiency during sensitive family circumstances. We do require your written consent for any third-party routing. I didn't authorize that, I said. The words came out clean, like water after rust. I suspected as much. She lowered her voice. It happens more than you'd think when there's a mix of grief and public image. If you're able, I'd like you to come in tomorrow with identification and any documents you think relevant. If your son contests, we can address it in the room. In the room, I repeated, feeling steadier already. I'll be there. After I hung up, Jack asked, "Want a lift?" "You've got work," I said automatically. "I do," he agreed. "And I also have a truck, an extra thermos, and no intention of letting you fight this alone." There was no flourish in it, no knight's pose, just the offer laid down like a plank across a gap. I stepped on it. That afternoon, I went to the library to print things I'd been too tired, or too ashamed, to assemble. The original deed with my name. Robert's letter about the emergency fund, written in his tidy, looping hand the winter before the cancer spread. The screenshots of Aaron's posts, all glitter and reassurance, timestamped to the nights my breath fogged the car window. The GoFundMe draft with my funeral face and his company's bank details. I slipped everything into a manila folder and wrote my own name on the tab, the way you claim a suitcase at a carousel. Firmly, before someone walks off with it. Jack insisted on dinner at the diner again, meatloaf that tasted like the 1970s and a slice of cherry pie I hadn't earned but ate anyway. We talked about unimportant things on purpose. Which radio station still plays real oldies, how peaches bruise if you look at them wrong, why grief hides in the cereal aisle. Somewhere between coffee refills, I remembered how to breathe without counting. That night I parked not behind a pharmacy but in front of Jack's garage because he said, "If you're sleeping in a car, let it be under a light I can see from my window." He handed me a wool blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and machine oil. "For warmth," he said, and the way he said it made the word feel like a right, not a loan. In the morning, I put on my least wrinkled blouse and tucked Robert's letter into my purse like a talisman. Jack's F-150 growled to life, faithful as an old dog. He handed me a travel mug. "Sugar? Two," I said. "Please." We didn't talk much on the drive. The highway unspooled, miles of brown grass and stubborn sky. My hands were steady on the folder. My heart wasn't. At a red light, Jack said, "You know, engines don't like being run dry. They'll go farther than they should and then fail dramatic. People aren't so different." I looked at him. "You saying I'm running on fumes?" He shrugged. "I'm saying you don't have to." The insurance office was all glass and neutral carpeting, the kind of place that tries to calm you with plants that never need watering. Ms. Dwyer met us in the lobby. She was shorter than her voice, with sharp eyes and a cardigan the color of a rainy morning. "Mrs. Harper," she said, shaking my hand. "And Mr. Jack's fine," he said. "Just moral support." She led us to a conference room that smelled faintly of toner and nerves. On the table sat a small stack of files, a glass bowl of mints, and the kind of pen that makes you feel either official or very small. I took the chair with my back to the wall. I've learned the hard way that some goodbyes prefer an exit. We were early. For 5 quiet minutes I reread Robert's letter, tracing the indentation of his pen strokes with my thumb. For emergency rehousing, * he'd written, stubborn even in foresight. He had always loved me in practical ways. New snow tires, extra salt in the cellar, a list of phone numbers taped inside the pantry door. Love is sometimes a toolbox, not a poem. The door opened. Aaron walked in wearing a tailored jacket that made him look like a man who knew where he was going, and Tina slipped in behind him with her phone angled low, screen recording already glowing like a small, hungry eye. "Mom," Aaron said, bright and careful. He leaned toward me without committing to a hug. "We'll handle the paperwork. You just sign." Jack's jaw shifted, but he kept quiet. Ms. Dwyer sat, folded her hands, and said, "Before we proceed, some clarity. Claim disbursement goes to the homeowner unless there is a notarized assignment of benefits. At present, there is none. Emails from Harper Creative LLC do not constitute homeowner authorization." Aaron's smile didn't falter, but it thinned. "My mother is overwhelmed," he said to the room, not to me. "I'm protecting her from predatory contractors and decision fatigue. This is standard for us." "For us," I repeated softly. I slid the manila folder across the table, opened it, and laid out my life in paper. Deed with my name, the GoFundMe draft with his screenshots of "she's fine," paired with locations I hoped he never noticed, and finally Robert's beneficiary form. I placed a hand on it like you do when swearing a truth you wish you didn't have to speak. I am overwhelmed, I said, by the kind of son who turns catastrophe into content. Payments to me. No intermediaries. Tina's whisper was a hiss. Delete the video, Aaron muttered without moving his lips. Ms. Dwyer nodded once. Understood. The door cracked open. A tall man in a security polo glanced in, called by the receptionist, I guessed, by the same instincts that make birds take flight before the storm hits. And one more thing, I said, my voice steadier than my knees. I slid Robert's letter to the center. My husband left a small investment account for emergency rehousing. I didn't mention it because I thought family would be shelter enough. That's on me. From here on, I will be using it. Alone. Aaron went pale, then blotchy. Mom, I was going to reimburse you. This was temporary. Optics. You don't understand. No, I said, meeting his eyes the way you look into a mirror you've been avoiding. I understand perfectly. You were going to use me. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the security guard shifted his weight, and the world started again. Ms. Dwyer slid a form toward me, simple, mercifully clear. I picked up the good pen. My hand did not shake. When I walked out of that conference room, the air tasted new, metallic with relief, raw and electric, like the sky before rain. My knees trembled, but not from weakness. It was the body's way of catching up to the soul that had already stood up. Jack was waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall with 2 styrofoam cups. Coffee, he said. Celebration grade. I laughed, a sound that came from deep inside, rusty and surprised. You waited? Course I did. Would have taken more than insurance jargon to scare me off. Outside, the wind had teeth, but it couldn't bite through the calm settling in me. I wasn't thinking about humiliation anymore, only direction. The next morning, I called the contractor recommended by Ms. Dwyer's office, a woman named Carla who sounded like she'd built houses with her bare hands and won arguments with her voice alone. We'll start with the foundation, she said. Everything good stands on what doesn't show. It felt right. Within a week, my lot in Springfield hummed with life again, machines grumbling, sawdust drifting in the light like golden snow. The first plank they set was where the kitchen would be. I stood there, boots sinking in the mud, imagining the smell of coffee and peach jam. Jack showed up with his thermos and a toolbox. Not here to hover, he said, though he did exactly that, fixing what didn't need fixing. He built the mailbox first, simple, white, with my name painted in black letters. In case anyone forgets whose house this is, he said. I almost cried right there among the nails and the noise. Days folded into weeks. Every evening, he'd drive me back to his place for supper, the 2 of us eating off mismatched plates while the radio murmured. Sometimes he talked about nothing, tractor parts, weather, the stubbornness of raccoons, and sometimes about Robert, how the man used to help at the community center. There was no pity in his voice, just the steady rhythm of shared memory. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped by the site with a casserole. We're organizing a fundraiser at the diner, she said. For your rebuild. I tried to decline, but she waved me off. It's not charity, honey. It's what neighbors do when the world forgets how. A month later, the diner was full, people laughing, plates clattering, music from the jukebox humming low. No cameras, no hashtags, just faces I hadn't seen in years, shining with the simple gladness of showing up. Jack poured coffee like a man hosting his own family. I sat at a corner booth, heart too full for words. Then Aaron walked in. He looked smaller than I remembered, his shoulders tight under a designer coat. Tina wasn't with him. His eyes searched the room until they found me. For a second, I almost didn't recognize the man who'd once refused to open his door. Mom, he said quietly, stopping at my table. Can I sit? I nodded. He sat, folding his hands like a boy waiting for a scolding. I came to say I'm sorry. For everything. The posts, the GoFundMe, the way I treated you. The diner buzzed around us, someone's laughter, the sizzle of bacon, but we sat in a bubble of silence. I thought I was helping, he said, voice shaking. But maybe I just wanted people to see me helping. That's the difference between love and performance, I said. One happens even when no one's watching. He winced but didn't look away. Can we start over? I studied him, the son I'd raised, the man I'd lost to screens and applause. Behind him, Jack was talking to Carla near the counter, both laughing at some private joke. The sound anchored me. We can start honest, I said finally. That's my only price. He nodded, eyes wet. I didn't reach for him, not yet. Forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't a switch, it's a doorway you unlock from both sides. Later that evening, Jack walked me home, the new cottage almost finished, its porch boards gleaming under the setting sun. He ran a hand over the railing, proud as if he'd built it all himself. You know, he said, this place suits you. Solid, simple, strong. Like its builder, I teased. He grinned. Builder's just the helper. Owner does the real work. He paused, looked at me, and in that still moment the air felt like honey, thick, sweet, waiting. Linda, he said, I know you've had enough of promises that break. So I won't make one. I'll just ask, would you let me stay? Maybe forever, if we manage not to annoy each other. My breath caught. His hands smelled faintly of cedar, like the porch boards he'd sanded smooth. Yes, I whispered, not because I needed rescuing, but because I finally knew the difference between being saved and being seen. We married quietly that spring, no live streams, no spectacle. Just vows said on the porch, the same place where my old house once stood and my new life began. People tell me I lost my home in that storm. They mean the walls and roof, the structure the wind stole. But the truth is simpler, truer. I was freed from the wrong one. Now, each morning, I sip coffee on that porch and watch the light crawl across the grass, soft and forgiving. The mailbox still gleams, my name steady on its side. Sometimes Aaron calls, sometimes he just sends pictures. He's working at a nonprofit now, learning how to listen without filming. We're not fixed, but we're trying. Jack hums as he works in the garden, the tune familiar, half memory, half promise. When he catches me watching, he winks. What? He says. Can't a man be happy in peace? And I smile, because peace isn't quiet, it's earned. Moral. **** Dignity is not a favor you beg for. It's a line you draw, and build your life behind. So tell me, would you have forgiven him? Or would you have walked away sooner? Follow for more true stories. Some wounds heal into wisdom.